Hey everyone, today we're going to go over the most under and overrated rare houseplants. How I'm going to break down this index is based on their prices, kind of bang for your buck for how good the plant is versus how much it costs. Okay, first up is this big philodendron I'm holding. This is not a painted lady, but this is a Philodendron Quad Color. Huge in comparison to the painted lady, and I think this plant is very underrated. It's not super expensive, and it grows very vigorously. It really has strawberry shake vibes. I've said before, it looks like a strawberry shake and a painted lady had sex. So first up, underrated, the Philodendron Quad Color. All right, next up is the Philodendron Strawberry Shake. This plant goes for kind of the 150s to 450s depending on the size, and it has been very expensive in price as of late. I say this plant is currently overrated. It's just far too expensive for kind of what you get. Maybe it's just a personal thing to me. The plants and the leaves are very gorgeous, but it's just very expensive still. And I typically find a trend of when plants are super overhyped and expensive, and then when they come down, this is kind of where I think they're still overhyped, and I'm waiting for them to kind of flatten out in the cost curve. That's cost for me and cost for the average retail consumer. It's very beautiful, but it grows quite slowly. Philodendron Strawberry Shake. Here's a Monstera on the list, and this is Monstera adansonii Mint. I currently think this plant is underrated. It's very affordable to purchase, and it has some beautiful coloring in the leaves. It's very subtle in its variegation, unlike the Albo. And while we're on this plant, I'm going to talk about the Albo, which I no longer keep in stock or grow here because I think the plant is a pain in the ass. It doesn't like humidity. It's very expensive still. Our initial cutting we paid like $1,500 to $1,700 for, and we lost a bunch of money on it. So I'm a little salty towards the adansonii Albo, but I think the mint can be had for an affordable price, and I think its hype curve has kind of calmed down. The Albo adansonii might also be in that range, but I still think it's still a bit overpriced. It doesn't like humidity really north of 60%, and that doesn't work for me. But this plant so far cuts easy, grows fast, has a fun variegation to it, good leaves, and I assume will get much bigger as it matures in leaf size. Mint adansonii, I think it's underrated. And if I don't include plants in this index, it's possibly because I think they're fair value. You can comment down below, and I'd be happy to answer your under or overrated plant questions down in the comments. Okay, on to a Syngonium Batik. I think this plant is really pretty for what you get. Bang for your buck. These are like 20, 30 bucks, something like that. And I just love the patterning on them. They grow very fast. The Syngonium Batik, completely underrated. And now again, we're gonna do the variegated and the unvariegated form. This is the billietiae, or the billietiae. I'm probably gonna butcher these names. Shout out to Aussie English for teaching me how to pronounce these Latin names. It's super tough. So comment down below if I'm saying something wrong. But the unvariegated version of this plant, I think, is super underrated. It gets just as big and long, and I'm not willing to spend $4,000, $7,000, $10,000 on a variegated billietiae, which I think is super overrated. I think that's crazy when a plant is in the $7,000 to $10,000. It always comes down back to earth, and I think you can get the unvariegated versions, especially because the variegation is very unstable on the billy from what I have heard. So just grab the unvariegated version. This is from Tissue Culture, and we sell this for 75 bucks at one of the Albo shows. I think it's a fun plant to have, and also this is a double plant, so there's two plants in there. Philodendron billietiae, unvariegated, I think is underrated, whereas the variegated version is far too expensive for my taste. And while we're here, I don't have one here because people steal them and go crazy for them, and we're going to talk about the Philodendron spiritus sancti, another overhyped, even unvariegated plant. I'm not a philodendron collector by any means, and I think, like I said, when plants are in that $7,000 to $10,000 range, I lose interest. That plant eventually, and I think it's already come down into like the 2s and 3,000s, and it's already in tissue. I think it's super dangerous to buy a unvariegated plant for a very expensive price because I know that plant can be tissue cultured. If it has variegation, it's super tough to TC that plant and then reproduce that variegation in the small tissue. It's very possible that this plant was tissued from a variegated billietiae, but what came off was an unvariegated plant. That's why I'm staying away from the spiritus sancti, staying away from the variegated billietiae, especially because that's a unstable variegation, whereas something like the Thai Con is a stable variegation. That's why you're seeing it in TC and done so successfully. Could I stop you right there and please like the video if you're learning something new? Another Philodendron Ring of Fire. This is also from tissue culture, but looks to have a stable variegation. That's why you're seeing some of the half mooning and those little dots, which I assume are why it's called the Ring of Fire. I think this plant is very underrated. These can be had for an affordable price. They're fun to watch grow. They stay really short and shrubby and grow very wide, long leaves that are just really beautiful to watch grow. Another philodendron that I think is underrated, Philodendron mamei. You can have these for like $30 to $70 from what I've seen. They are very beautiful in their leaves. It's just a fun plant to watch grow. This is from tissue and has grown very fast, glittering almost in the leaves. All right, back to overrated, Philodendron White Knight. Now this plant has gone through crazy price corrections. I think we paid at one point $500 for a very variegated version. It grows really slow. It's a lot like the Pink Princess in that it has very unstable variegation. So it's tough to grow. Costa Farms has also tried to drop a Pink Princess, but it has very unstable variegation. So I just think plants like this that are really expensive, I know the Pink Princess has come down a lot in price, but to get a very variegated one, they're still expensive. I just think the hype is not worth it, and I would prefer other pink plants, to be honest, such as this Syngonium Pink Splash. I mean, look at the coloring on these leaves. I would put that against just about any Pink Princess, and I would put it against it in its growth pattern, rooting ability, and everything about that. Little yellowing leaf here, nothing to worry about. Pink Splash Syngonium, still underrated. They can be expensive, maybe 75 to 100 bucks depending on the size. I think they're still underrated. You just get a lot of bang for your buck. They're easy to grow and easy to take cuttings. Another underrated pink plant, Syngonium Pink Splash Allusion. It's super fun to watch grow. I think its pattern is one of my favorite on the Syngoniums. Just like all Syngoniums, grows fast, clones fast. And that brings me to probably my favorite Syngonium, Syngonium Panda Galaxy. Very underrated. These kind of go between like 75 and 125, but look at how big this plant has gotten. I got it as like a 3-leaf cutting maybe 3-4 months ago, and it's just taken off in leca, crazy roots. Variegation is really, really quite incredible. Panda Galaxy, I guess kind of like Thai Constellation, has that pretty stable variegation. It looks like almost every leaf has variegation on it, and big fan of this plant. Philodendron Majestic, very underrated. I just think you can't beat these jungly leaves, and they can be had for between like 50 and 100 bucks. Purple, kind of pink on the backside from the Varicosum. This is a cross of Sidori and Varicosum. Very pretty, huge leaves. And this is Philodendron Camposportoanum, underrated. We're gonna do a rapid fire round now. Syngonium Albo, underrated. Syngonium Milk Confetti, overrated. Syngonium Confetti, underrated. I can't tell the difference between these plants, but one is 10x the price about. Syngonium Mojito, overrated. Very pretty leaf here, completely sport on these ones. And I can't believe I almost forgot the most overrated plant, Philodendron Florida Beauty. Goes completely sport. I'd rather Florida Ghost at 3 times less the price. And plants that I think are fair valued are Monstera Albo. I think it's reached its kind of stable price. You can't TC that plant, so it needs to be all taken from cutting, and genetics are everything. I think it's fair value. Thai Constellation has come down off of its hype cycle after Costa Farms, so I think that plant is kind of in the fair value, maybe a little bit overhyped, but right in the fair value. I always talk about this plant, but Philodendron Burle Marx I think is just about fair value, maybe slightly underrated, grows super fast, incredible variegation. Maybe I'm just partial to this plant in general. So thanks you guys so much for watching this week's video. If you did enjoy the video and or learn something new, click subscribe so you can come back next Saturday for another video on plants. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day.